Ruth Rundle, English author of best-selling books for children, wrote a very small book with a very big title. The title is this: Why You Should Read Children's Books, Even Though You Are So Old and Smart. In it, Rundle notes that children's fiction has a long and noble history of being dismissed. Likewise, illustrators for children's books have a long and noble history of being dismissed as artists. Is Beatrix Potter dismissible because she created a rabbit who hopped into the imaginations of children generation after generation? Is Elsie Thomas an artist when she painted her mural, The Dance of Life, but dismissible when she illustrated children's books? Is Quentin Blake dismissible when he argues that you can be a great artist even in a newspaper? Art is art, whether hanging on the wall of a gallery or illustrating a book held in a child's hand. Little Elsie Eldridge held Beatrix Potter's Tale of Peter Rabbit in her hands, reading and rereading it until she learned it word for word. So when her teacher told the class to write a story they knew, she wrote Peter Rabbit. Her teacher gave her a black mark and a severe reprimand for having copied it from the book. I imagine Elsie looking without flinching into the eyes of her teacher as Quentin Blake's Matilda looks without flinching into the eyes of Miss Trunchbull. Elsie's Roma Rabbit belongs to a tradition that stretches back to Beatrix Potter's imagination and her skill as an artist. The faces of Peter and Roma Rabbit's mother are similar, and both wear human clothes. Peter looks for parsley after gorging himself in Mr. McGregor's garden. Roma's mother sticks labels on jars of homemade jam. In 1914, Beatrix Potter finished writing the story of Kitty in Boots, a kitty cat who goes out at night hunting for mice. Beatrix drew the frontispiece, which we see on the left, but did not publish the book. A century later, Potter's publishing firm, F. Warren & Company, commissioned Quentin Blake to illustrate the tale of Kitty in Boots. Blake has given us Miss Kitty in a gentleman's Norfolk jacket and little fur-lined boots. We've seen that Elsie and Quentin looked back to Beatrix. Here we see Beatrix looking back to Randolph Caldecott. Beatrix grew up reading Caldecott's picture books for children. Some of his original illustrations hung on the walls of her house. Caldecott's frog, escorted by Mr. Rat, walks up the steps to Miss Mouse's house to woo her. Both are dressed formally, as was customary in the 1880s when the book was published. Potter writing and illustrating 2 decades later, maintains a formal dress while giving her frog a name, Mr. Jeremy Fisher. Sir Isaac Newton, a newt wearing a black and gold waistcoat, listens placidly as Mr. Jeremy Fisher regales him with an account of his day of luckless fishing. The string of frog stories stretches on, from Caldecott to Potter to Thomas, with changes of clothes. Potter's Mr. Jeremy Fisher digs for fishing worms dressed in a frock coat and slipper-like shoes. Elsie's Flip Frog is barefooted and wears a new jumper knitted by his mother. Its loose wool has caught in a gorse bush where he's been hiding from Policeman Badger. As he tries to break loose, stitches come undone, wind around his legs and feet, and he flips over. The string of frog stories continues, from Elsie to Quentin, who belong, along with Caldecott and Potter, to a tradition that places animals in a human-like world. This helps children see their own world from a slight distance. Elsie's Flip Frog is proud of his new jumper. The only human attire that Quentin's Dancing Frog proudly shares with Fred Astaire is a formal wear hat. Elsie provided full-color illustrations for 7 books for children written by Dorothy Richards in the mid-1940s. It is curious that early in her married life, and only for books written by Dorothy Richards and Vera Webster, did Elsie use Elsie Thomas to identify herself as the illustrator. Otherwise, on book covers and title pages, she is listed either as M.E. Eldridge or Mildred E. Eldridge. Here we see bad-tempered Maggie Mole stepping out of her house, waving a white spotted red cloth, and that white spotted red cloth appears again and again in Elsie's works. Maggie waves at and then empties her dustpan. Mr. Rat, who had been in a bad temper, now calmly smokes his pipe. There is only one human being in any of Dorothy Richards' books, the ones illustrated by Elsie. This human being is a little girl whose name is Rosalind Ruth. Her 2 friends are Pussy Willow the cat and the Beau Bear. Elsie's childhood teddy bear, who still exists, is named Beau Bear. And her pet name for her husband, R.S. Thomas, was also Beau Bear. The images on the screen illustrated an incident in the book. One day, Pussy Willow caught a mousetrap on the end of her tail. She yelled, "Meow, ow, ow!" Rosalind Ruth and Beau Bear laughed so much that over they went backwards and lay there rolling with laughter. Pussy Willow shook her tail, which caused the mousetrap to unfasten and fall right in the middle of Beau Bear's fat tummy. Elsie depicts this moment. After the laughing tumble, Rosalind Ruth cries, "Come along, I want to paddle in the stream." Many of Elsie's works feature a stream, as here, flowing from a mountainous source. Two publishing houses released books by Dorothy Richards during the mid-1940s and early 50s. Each firm chose a different illustrator. Faber and Faber selected Elsie. The other publisher, Lady Bird Books, turned to Ernest Harris. The rabbit on the left, painted by Elsie, looks back to the style of Beatrix Potter. The one on the right, painted by Harris, looks ahead to the style of Quentin Blake. The first book, on which the cover indicates just Elsie, so did she write it and illustrate it, or did her husband R.S. write the story and she did the illustrations? I've heard both sides of that, not qualified to make a definitive declaration, but what is clear is that this is the first book that carries only her name. There'll be two more that I'll talk about. So the first book is the story of Gwenno, a black and white goat who was born in Wales. Elsie and R.S. did have a goat named Gwenno, and when they moved from Manavan to Ecclesvach, Gwenno rode in the back seat of their mini traveler. In the 1980s, Elsie and her husband were living in retirement in a stone cottage overlooking Hell's Mouth. There she wrote and illustrated her final books for children. Both books, In My Garden and The Seashore, were published by Medici Cards, the London-based company for which she had been working for more than 2 decades, creating watercolors of flowers and birds and animals. Elsie wrote these sentences to accompany the images. February sunshine brings the snowdrops. The robin looks for somewhere to build a nest later on. The wood mouse sits in the sun. Elsie's words and her painting coincide. Then she writes, the puffins like to stand in groups and look out to sea. Elsie created a balanced painting by not quite adhering to the words on the page. Occasionally, and this is one of the matters that intrigues me particularly, occasionally Elsie's illustrations for a book differ from a key theme in the text. This is the case in her work for books written for older children by Mathena Bloomfield. Bloomfield grew up in the 1880s on a farm northwest of Norwich. Her stories deal with her childhood, including slaughtering pigs for bacon and trapping fish in bow nets for dinner. The little girl in the story sobs. Everything dies. It's dreadful, dreadful. Elsie does not draw a dreadful thing, only illustrating live pigs, 3 of them as if in conversation, and a bow net lacking a trapped fish. There was another dreadful thing that Elsie did not draw, a little girl's post-traumatic stress disorder. This little girl, at the center of Bloomfield's stories, was riding home one night with her father in a horse-drawn cart when he, getting down to open a gate, handed her the reins. His foot slipped as he tried to climb back up into the cart. The horse bolted and dashed back to the farm, where the 7-year-old girl, whose hands were bleeding from gripping the reins, climbed down from the cart, trembling with fright. In years to come, her legs would draw up and become stiff at the knee joint, owing, the doctor said, to a nervous complaint brought on by the accident. Elsie did not illustrate this post-traumatic stress disorder that is so much part of Bloomfield's story. We've seen now in the past few moments that Elsie was a strong-minded artist, declining on occasion to illustrate even the core aspect of a writer's story. At other times, she displayed her artistic versatility. When we feel the breeze flowing in through the window, and notice how precisely she painted plants at a particular point in the life cycle of each of those plants, we sense that whole versatility. For another story, constrained by the publisher's choice of only black and white, her water lilies are stylized, not showing the botanical detail she was capable of providing. We continue to note Elsie's versatility. Her lines for a spider are spider-like, but they're heavier for the monkeys. Vera Webster's story of Spindle Spider is brought to life in a black and white drawing. Splashes of color brighten the illustrations for the 3 Royal Monkeys by Walter de la Mare. Baron Magpie, as imagined by Elsie, sits in his chair, examining a bedspread woven by Spindle Spider, who stands at his feet. The Baron in black and white continues to sit in his chair, to which chair's fabric Elsie has added a bit of color. Croaker Frog is green and coughs up a pearl for the Baron's gem collection, part of which is on the round table. So I hope we're beginning to get this sense that is so important to me of Elsie's versatility, as well as the strong mind that entered into that artistic versatility. But what she did, of course, was shaped by a number of powers outside herself. The author's stories, of course, the preferences of editors and book designers, the capabilities of printers, and the availability of paper and ink during the lean years following the Second World War. She responded to those constraints, but not to the point of harnessing her own strong mind. When a story deals with a little girl whose knee sometimes locks up, Elsie draws the little girl running with horses. When Walter de la Mare writes about a place that cannot be depicted, Elsie's pen floats away into surreality, the reality that transcends what humans define as real. The drawing of Walter de la Mare is by Sir William Rothenstein, who was principal of the Royal College of Art when Elsie studied there in the early 1930s. De la Mare, at the beginning of his writing career, said, "If there is any true imagination at all in the writing, then pictures only confuse and distract the reader's own constantly fleeting picture." The first edition of de la Mare's book, titled The Three Mulla Mulgars, which was published in London in 1910, contains no illustrations. Perhaps there was no felt need for them, because as T.S. Eliot said, in the writings of de la Mare, the familiar is suddenly strange. During the day, de la Mare used his pen to tabulate familiar statistics for an oil company. At night, he used his pen to envelop the familiar world in strangeness. As a little boy, de la Mare was familiar with monkeys, having one as a pet. As a father, he entertained his children on Sunday afternoons with the tale of 3 royal monkeys traveling to the strange valley of Tishnar. As a writer, he chose words, both familiar and strange, to activate the imaginations of children, to let them reel off their own constantly fleeting picture of the story they were reading. Almost a decade after the 3 Mulla Mulgars appeared in London without illustrations, publisher Alfred Knopf released a New York edition illustrated by Dorothy P. Lathrop, whose self-portrait we are seeing. Trained in Manhattan and Philadelphia, Lathrop's career began when she illustrated de la Mare's book. This led to a friendship with him and contracts for illustrating 5 more of his books for children. Lathrop illustrated de la Mare's The 3 Mulla Mulgars in 1919. Eldridge illustrated a new edition in 1946, when the book was entitled The 3 Royal Monkeys. Lathrop on the left combines full-color familiarity with full-strength strangeness to challenge the reader's imagination. Eldridge uses black and white with splashes of red and a male skeleton wearing red beads to remind the reader that strangeness haunts the familiar. In 1925, Richard Dick de la Mare, son of Walter, joined the publishing house that became Faber and Faber, bringing with him the rights to republish or publish his father's books. He also brought a readiness to commission noted artists to illustrate the firm's publications. One of these artists was Edward Bawden, who was painted at his easel by his fellow tutor at the Royal College of Art, Eric Revilius. It is possible that it was Dick Delamere who chose J.A. Shepard to illustrate Faber and Faber's 1927 edition of his father's book, now titled The Three Royal Monkeys, and actually labeled in the book itself, a cheap edition. Shepard worked as an illustrator for a number of London-based periodicals and was a long-time cartoonist for Punch. His drum-playing rabbit exhibits the nature of his creative imagination. Shepard drew his illustrations for Delamere's Three Royal Monkeys in 1927. Eldridge created hers about 2 decades later. Shepard places his monkeys in a human setting. Elsie places hers in a natural one. When we compare the monkey on the right of Shepard's drawing with the monkey on the right of Eldridge's drawing, we see that their styles differ dramatically. Shepard's monkey is similar to Matisse's late drawings of human figures, a heavy, sharply defined outline, no hatching to suggest substance, flesh. Elsie drew her monkey using only hatching, or almost only, not a heavy outline, almost no outline when you look very carefully, thereby giving it weight and substance. A few minutes ago we noted that Dick Delamere selected Edward Bawden to be a principal artist for Faber and Faber. Now guesswork enters my story, and if you repeat the story, please remember it's guesswork. But it seems possible that Bawden, who was one of Elsie's tutors at the Royal College of Art, recommended her to illustrated books published by Faber and Faber. Perhaps one of these was The Three Royal Monkeys. Elsie's drawings for The Three Royal Monkeys illustrate a story for older children, a tale of 3 monkeys walking from the place of their birth to the place of their heritage. And now I'm getting to the point that Rundle made in her book's title about where adult imaginations might begin to enter into the reading of a child's book. When adults ponder her drawings, they may see images of life as a journey from the womb of their origin to the womb of their destiny. The 3 royal monkeys, having left the place of their birth, walk into a tunnel of darkness formed by bare trees towards the place where they are princes by heritage. Elsie's composition, which uses trees to suggest the female vulva, invites us to imagine a journey into the womb of our origin, the womb of human evolution, the womb of cosmic creation. Cannibal monkeys capture the 3 royal monkeys, thumb, thimble, and nod, and prepare to feast on them. But before the feast could take place, Nod, the youngest, smallest of the three royal monkeys, sees hovering in the air a little flame shaped like a pear, leading into darkness. Nod hears a voice urging him, "Follow, follow, follow the flickering light to the place of your royal heritage." For adult readers, Elsie's drawing may offer an image of entering a dark, vulva-shaped tunnel guided by a pear-shaped flame. Those who travel this way hear a voice, small, clear, calling softly within them, "Follow, follow this flame into the womb of your destiny." Thumb, Nod, and Thimble walk on, climbing a winding cliffside path. Suddenly, Thumb stops and shouts, "Back, back!" Nod stoops low and stares out between his brother's legs and sees nothing but empty air. Elsie illustrates this terror-inducing moment, perhaps hinting that adults on their journey into the womb of their destiny often peer into nothing but empty space. The three royal monkeys continue their journey, arriving after additional harrowing adventures at the place of their heritage. One would expect Nod to be exultant, but no, he is sad, a little afraid. Delamere writes that in the silence of the beautiful mountains, he feels sad, a little afraid, as do even human travelers resting a while in the journey that has no end. Elsie illustrates what the three royal monkeys saw as they approached the place of their princely heritage, but she does not draw how Nod felt when he arrived at his goal, only to discover that it was a rest stop in the journey that has no end. Dorothy Lathrop's final drawing for the three Mulla Mulgars visualizes a fantastic person who dwells in Tishnar, a place that is anything but familiar. The strange realm towards which the three royal monkeys have been walking. Elsie might have left Tishnar unillustrated, thinking it too weird for children. Might have thought that a surreal drawing would fail to harmonize with her other illustrations for the three royal monkeys. But no, she chose to do something that she had never done before and would never do again, which was to create a surreal image for a book for children. So she turned to the unreal to illustrate Delamar's definition of Tishnar as that which cannot be thought about in words or told or expressed. On the screen are three surreal images. Once again, we see Elsie's Tishnar drawing, which is coupled with William Blake's mid-1820s scene from Dante's Divine Comedy. On the right, there is another surreal image created by Elsie, this one for the Starborn, written by Henry Williamson, and published by Faber and Faber 2 years after the same firm published The Three Royal Monkeys. Surreal images remind us that there are realities that transcend the realities that we can wrap our minds around, the realities that we can photograph, enumerate, analyze, and otherwise subject to our powers of human reason. Elsie's surreal drawing for The Three Royal Monkeys visualizes that which cannot be thought about in words, or told or expressed. She is Quentin Blake's little Matilda again, unflinching with unflinching eyeballs. Unflinchingly eyeballed by Trunchbull, and refusing to accept that let me try that sentence once more. She is Quentin Blake's little Matilda, unflinching when eyeballed by a Trunchbull who refuses to accept that there are reasons that reason knows nothing of. Reasons of the heart, the imagination. The reasons that children know, that adults forget. In my introduction, I noted Ruth Rundle's small book with a big title, Why You Should Read Children's Books, Even Though You Are So Old and Smart. We should read children's books, I suggest, even though we are so old and smart and whatever else, because the illustrations for children's books revive our imaginations, and they show to us that the illustrators of children's books are not dismissible artists. Beatrix Potter's Benjamin Bunny, Elsie Eldridge's Rosalind Ruth, Quentin Blake's self-portrait as a frog open our eyes and minds. They are fine art. Thank you.